Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Get Jashed. I'm your host, Jess Jash. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to remind you that the Get Jashed Meditation Plus subscription library is available now for you. I release weekly guided meditation and mindfulness sessions for you to listen to. It's attached to this podcast. This podcast remains free, but it is just a monthly subscription to the Meditation Plus library if you want access to that. So I will include the link below if you are in need of diving into a regular, accessible meditation practice that doesn't separate you too much from your world, your life, and really actually works with you, the human. And you may be the person who is very cerebral a lot throughout your day and has a lot of cognitive decisions and things that you're doing throughout the day. So you want something that helps you ease into more of a mindfulness practice. This is for you. So that meditation library is there and available, and you have access to the full library, including previous episodes, for as long as you have your your subscription rather. Today feels very relevant to talk about the age-old time management thing and energy management thing, because it is something that as business owners and leaders tend to find, it becomes more and more challenging to fit things in. And from the perspective of someone who is, I believe, coming towards the end of an overly busy, and I mean overly, full season, as I lead into or towards my completion of my master's. I've written a book during that same time. I've had surgery. I've gone through grief, lots of grief, and I've moved house. And now as this episode comes out, I'll only be a few weeks off finishing my master's. My book is in production as we speak, and that is being released in September. And during all that, I've also just been working, doing work because I love what I do, but it's been quite a full time, and it's something that I've really had to really address within myself of, how do I do this? How do I manage everything? How do I deal with everything? How do I still go to the gym and take care of my health and well-being? How do I still have my own practice? How do I do any of it well without overwhelming myself? And I really wanted to address this because it is something that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves for. So if you are a business owner, this is particularly hard. I'm not even challenging, particularly hard, because we never feel like it's enough. Well, we can never feel like it's enough. We put this pressure on ourselves, and there's always something to do, like there's never any lack of things to be doing or get done or whatever, to be making progress at the very least. And we never give ourselves enough. We never say it is enough. And that is super detrimental to our well-being. That is super bad for us overall in a long-term capacity. So how do we approach that? Because this is something that, even though my entire business, everything, special interest is in well-being, it is still something that I've had to look at addressing for myself and catch myself on, especially more recently, where it's like, well, what is enough? Truly, what is enough for us? So let's talk about it, because I hear advice like we all have the same amount of hours in a day as Beyonce or as, I don't know, Tim Cook. I don't know. I'm picking names. Except we don't. That is such a false equivalence, and it's something that we have used as motivation, but it actually creates undue pressure and expectations and totally dismisses the privilege that some people that we might use, and this isn't their fault necessarily either, unless they are saying this themselves, but some people that we might use as those examples because they're ultra successful, maybe ultra wealthy, and they can do it. So if they can do it, I can do it. We all live in the same 24 hours. Absolutely not. We don't. We truly don't. There is a privilege to wealth for starters. I mean, this goes without saying, and this isn't even the point of this particular conversation, but worth noting, there is a privilege to wealth that we need to acknowledge that is different to how the majority of people and business owners function. So there is a privilege to wealth where they are not doing everything. They don't have the same burdens of responsibility in the sense of housekeeping, doing their laundry, cooking every single meal. Do you know how the amount of hours I resent, and I don't mind cooking. This is just a tangent here. I don't mind cooking, but the amount of hours that I resent almost sometimes, unfortunately, because I don't want that energy going into my food either, but the amount of hours I sometimes feel like I resent having to cook every single day, because we're human and we're so fucking high maintenance that we have to eat. And we have to move our bodies and we have to hydrate, we have to do all the things, right? But we need to make sure we keep in mind that there is a privilege to the ultra wealthy that is unfair to compare when you are, you might be doing well. This isn't even about wealth either, but it's unfair to compare when you aren't a billionaire or even a millionaire, right? So we do not all have the same amount of hours in a day. It is just functionally, categorically untrue, because some people have chronic illness that impacts how they can function throughout the day. Some people, and I point it to myself on purpose because that's something I've had to learn about myself and how I function, and I'm still figuring out how that works. There are some people who are caretakers in some way, whether they are parents or they are caring for aging parents, or they have other responsibilities that take up energy and time and resources, mental, physical, and otherwise, so that isn't equivalent. There are some people who live on their own, who maybe don't have the same support network around them, or maybe don't have someone else in the house to help them maintain things. There are some people who, the list goes on. And that's not to be like, well, you don't have to do anything, la la la. Like, we're not going to the other end of the extreme and making excuses and everything, especially if you're a business owner, right? Because what are you going to do? But if you really consider how important it's going to be to actually acknowledge where you are at, that is going to be your best thing to then figure out how to move forward, because you need to understand what you need. And this is also part of the personalized health coaching that I do, because there is a way to kind of determine or assess generally or how we function at certain times of day, or the times of day we best function for certain kinds of activities, brain activity or otherwise, that can really help you start to schedule your day in a way that is supportive to your energy rather than just draining. And we need to actually acknowledge and acknowledge where we're at in order to move forward. So what I've learned about me, for example, is I have learned that I love routine. Routine is great, but I've learned that if I'm overscheduled, immediate mental drain and physical energy drain, immediate energy drain of every kind. If I am overscheduled and overscheduled for too long, even if it's all clearly marked out and I can follow it, it's this weird thing where there is a line and it becomes overscheduled. And it's a balance for me. I can only speak for my experience in this context, but it's a balance for me because I'm also autistic ADHD. So my ADHD needs a certain element of scheduling. My autism loves a certain element of routine, but also both need a bit of space for different reasons. For me, my autism loves routine, but I also need to make sure I don't get stuck there. And ADHD needs routine, even if it doesn't want it. But it also needs to feel, it means that I need to feel free in some elements to be able to choose sometimes throughout the day. So there's so many layers that go into understanding what our needs are. And yeah, it's even a privileged position to be able to be talking about, well, how can we assess that during the day? Because some people just are not in positions or roles or industries where that is reasonable either. So, we're really we're really just understanding, not saying it's bad because I'm privileged. It's just saying it's understanding, all right, well, this is what I have available to me. And it's important because it can impact how you approach the time you do have. So you could have time, you could have a whole day. Here's something I've learned about myself too. You could have a whole day free. And I mean free in the sense of maybe nothing scheduled in, no appointments, no sessions, nothing explicitly scheduled in, no meetings, nothing. And I've learned, for me, at the very least, I've learned that on those days, I get really excited about it because I'm like, oh my God, I have a full day just to focus on whatever it is I need to focus on. Last year it was, I have a full day just to focus on writing the book. This semester particularly, I have a full day to focus on my uni work, my research proposal, my study, all of that. Whatever it is for you, and it might be different from week to week, but if you have a full day, sometimes when we get to that day, it's harder to actually get things done because there's no structure. But that can also leave us feeling tired or drained. Our brains are such funny things, and this might be the most neurodivergent conversation we've had. If you're neurotypical and you're not resonating, maybe listen in case there's someone around you who might need this support. I don't know, but you might resonate regardless, right? But we need to consider how when we do have free time, how our energy responds. And then also when we have very little time, sometimes that helps us focus. But then again, like I said, sometimes it makes us feel overwhelmed, especially if we have too many big things on our plates that we're also trying to not just keep on our plates, but spin all at the same time. And it's just not about time management sometimes. I think we know that at this point. I think we know that time management isn't actually the thing. I've heard it sort of spoken about as priority management. I think I've probably also spoken about it as priority management, and that is kind of true too. And this could be what we're actually exploring here in this conversation. But it's also about energy management, mostly, which can come down to priorities. It can come down to time, but it's all of those things, not just one of those things. Because we don't manage time. We cannot manage time, but we can manage our energy. So, like I said, if you have a full day, a full work day, and you're like, cool, I have nothing scheduled in, so now I can focus, that's great news. But then how are you structuring that for yourself so that there is still scaffolding for you to work within? Because otherwise, maybe you'll spend a full day doing what you could actually get done in 2 hours. There's a principle, can't think of whose principle that is. It might come to me. But that is a principle. It's will take as long as we allow ourselves sometimes. And if we allow ourselves a full day, that might be how long it takes, and it drags on and it ends up being draining because we're not really feeling achievement. But if we're like, well, what if I focus on this? It's 9 o'clock now. What if I focus on this till 11 a.m.? That's 2 hours. Then you actually might get a lot more done and then have a lot more day, So there's that, but then our energy will fluctuate. And that will be different for each different person, which is why sometimes figuring out a topic and a thing to talk to you about feels like hell, because I know that everyone is different and I am constantly trying to account for that, and sometimes almost to a fault when it comes to actually talking through it, because I'll either go too general, and that's not helpful, or I'll keep repeating everyone's different, like I have already this episode. So, but it's truly true. It's truly the truth. So we need to consider how we glorify being busy versus focusing on how do we structure our day in a way that serves us, so we're not just busy, because that's also, that prolonged activity is such a drain and it leads to burnout too. So if you're a business owner, listen to this, listen up, because there's going to be so many things that you feel like you need to do because maybe that's what business owners do, or maybe there's the hustle culture that's been ingrained in all of the well-meaning, well-intended business advice books and all of that, but it actually ends up with burnout because you try to take advantage of every minute of every day because that's what you've been told you need to do to hustle to get anything to happen. But then you realize that, well, actually, I'm just fucking burnt out because I took that too literally. Took that too literally, and now I don't have a concept of what free time is or what leisure time is, because what the fuck is that? So we really need to consider how we approach this. So there's a couple of examples as well. And it's not necessarily that you're going to be able to get away with not doing some of the other things, but it's kind of being aware of how some of the other things impact you, so then you can prepare around it. So it could be meetings that you know are going to be draining but have to be had. It could be that, right? Could be meetings you know are going to be draining, or conversations you know are going to be draining, because sometimes that's a reality and there's things that we need to address there, versus conversations you know energize you but only work in certain contexts in terms of progressing things or whatever it is, right? So it's being aware of when you're going to potentially, as best you can, when you're going to be having any one of those conversations, and then what you need to do to kind of support yourself around that, especially if it's a necessity. Same thing with admin work versus work that feels meaningful. I know for sure that admin work is such a drain for me. That includes accounting related things like tax and all of that. Not the organizing, like the being across things, but the minutiae of it, which is why the first opportunity I hired an accountant in business. Like, it seems very obvious, right? But it's because it's such a draining thing that I'll put off, and then it becomes a stressful thing because then there's a due date, right? So that is something that I really was aware of. But then I love meaningful work. I love creation and delivery. My happy place that I've really, really landed on and figured out, is when I'm in creation and when I'm in delivery. Has to kind of be both. I struggle to be in creation if I can't deliver, and I don't know if I struggle to be in delivery, but delivery is not as fulfilling if I haven't been able to create in the leader, if it's not something that I've really gotten to embody and create. But I also am realistic and know that there is going to be an element of, broadly, generally speaking, admin work. And that's okay too. But again, it's an example of when you can kind of structure or scaffold yourself or your day around those things, because that is what's going to help you maintain your energy and your focus and also your drive. So, firstly, take a bit of an audit. Whether you do pause and look back at your calendar and then go, okay, this is what I had. How did I feel? What gave me energy? What drained me? Did I feel my best or did I not? Did it feel heavy and hard or did it not? If not, what did it feel like? Start to notice the patterns, and you can look back at your calendar, because that's usually where you would have, I hope, marked the different things that you have on, like the certain meetings. Was it about this topic? Is the topic draining? Or is it just because the conversation or that person is, there's a certain way that I have to communicate with that person? Or did I get to do this, but did I feel good about doing this or in the lead up to doing this? Or did I not, because I didn't get enough planning time or prep time ahead of time? Really just start to understand how you feel about the different activities and things that you have going on your day to day. It's an audit. You're using this as information, as data. This is important for how you feel, because we don't go into business to feel like shit. We don't. We truly don't. And yeah, there's probably going to be some shitty moments, but also, and ideally, we're working through that to grow and to develop and to figure it out from there. So really consider, get that information, because it also impacts how you feel. And I said that before, but by that I mean how you feel, which impacts how you lead. And that really matters. That really matters, especially if you have a team or people that you work with, clients, customers, stakeholders, partners, whatever it is. It's such an important thing to consider, because if you're drained and just fucked off about things a little bit, that's going to impact how you interact with other people. Again, that is just the reality of it. So consider how your energy shapes your team's energy or your business's energy, how your energy works for that conversation, whether it could be productive conversation or maybe doesn't go the way you want it. And it's not to say that your energy is going to magically fix everything either, but being really aware of how that all works. And also, like, we're talking about psychological safety a lot in the workplace now, which is great. We need to be. But here in Australia, there's a lot of new legislation coming in to protect workplaces, to protect teams and employees, or everyone in the workplace, so that they feel psychologically safe. So you want to consider how you showing up contributes to that safety or not, that security or not. And you showing up constantly pissed off because you haven't kept your boundaries, or because you're constantly trying to say yes to everything, or you're not paying attention to how you're feeling as a result of things and then not making any change, that is going to burn you out, but also that is going to contribute to how other people feel around you, even if how you're feeling is totally valid. It's not about dismissing how you're feeling or pretending, but just again using it as information. It's going to impact how it's going to ripple out. It's going to have that impact. It's going to ripple out. So you can determine or notice or use information for how you feel after you interact with people, but then also how do you think people feel after interacting with you? And I pause here for a moment to let that sink in, because sometimes I think we get so caught up in the stress that we forget about who we are becoming in order to make progress or be successful. So that's a bit of food for thought too. So what can you do about it? A few things. Get the information. Do your own little personal audit. We're not saying anything's wrong. We're not saying you're wrong for having that feeling or that experience or that reaction or whatever it is. We're not saying that at all. But we are just using that as information. Notice where your energy is feeling towards certain activities, but also towards certain times of day or certain elements of your schedule. Like I said, if you look at your day ahead, whether you look at it the night before or the morning of, and you have this feeling, you need to be paying attention to notice the feeling, but you have this feeling of tightness or compression or pressure, notice where that consistently shows up. And the last thing I would say is, because you can't just magically reduce things sometimes, but what do you need to do to make something feel achievable? If you have something that is adding considerable pressure, even if it's a good thing that you need to prioritize, you can't have everything as priority, otherwise you're treating nothing as a priority. So what do you need to perhaps shift from your day or remove from your pressure list in order to feel like you can breathe again and maybe have enough time to do the thing, or have enough mental space to do the thing, or just feel a little less like your mind is trying to hold things in all different directions, so it's hard to focus on the one thing. So, for example, this has happened many times, I'll have a full work day because that's a responsibility I have, which is great, obviously. But then I also have an assignment that I need to feel like I'm making progress on, especially ahead of, maybe a uni meeting for it or a workshop or something. So I need to have that in progress and I need time to do that. And then maybe I have a call or plans made also for after work. I can't possibly fit all of that in, let alone go in a gym or anything like that. So there's some things I might double up on. I might try, and I have a little walker, so I might try like a walking pad rather, not a walker. But I might try to get my movement in while I'm watching TV, winding down in the evening after dinner. Or I might actually just let myself not have to be on the phone or not have to be on a call if I can reschedule it, whether it's personal, and I just go, I just can't do this. I allow myself to prioritize how I'm feeling, and obviously you want to make sure you keep your connections and your relationships, but if it's a particular day where you're like, I just am putting so much pressure on myself for this, you do what you need to, and then I time block, even if it's just an hour that I have to focus on the uni assignment. Not everyone's going to have a uni assignment, but I think you can kind of come with me on the journey and understand what I'm saying here. You time block and you go, all right, well, I've got this full workday. Great. That's a really good thing. But then I've still got to get these things in, and I still want to not be working into the night because it's not good for me. Or I have family, obviously. Or I also just deserve to have downtime, regardless of how busy I am. So you remove the pressure of something. For me, it's been, I'll remove the pressure of spending hours and hours on a uni assignment and go, well, what can I get done in an hour? And sometimes I get more done that way. Go figure. Or I'll postpone plans and be like, I just can't catch up today. I want to, but I'm just under too much pressure. And that answer, that what you do about it is going to change depending on circumstances, but that is an example. So really consider how mindfulness, it's mindfulness practices, really consider how mindfulness practices help you to understand how you're feeling about certain things, so then you can choose more intentionally in ways that serve you, that then serve your business, that then serve you again, because the better your business is going, the better you feel. So really, really consider that. And I think we'll leave it there for the day, for this week. Because I think I've given you a lot that you can kind of ponder and consider and work with from here. So hope this has been helpful. Really do that audit and figure it out, and then see where you can remove pressure, even temporarily, so you can actually feel like you're making progress somewhere, and then that begets more progress. So that can be helpful. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining me. I will see you next week with next week's episode.